in World War II, and he sent a bunch of letters back home during the war. And the ones he sent to his grandparents, my great grandparents, were kept. Right, and they've all been saved and digitized. And so something I typically do in class when talking about World War II is use these as a primary source. Right, so grandfather Dwayne Neubauer was joined the U.S. Navy in the midst of World War II, and he was stationed on a carpenter ship. So I think I just share this as a primary resource for what it was like for a typical soldier at this time. So the first letter is to his grandparents, Friday afternoon, March 22nd, 1944. In it, my grandfather says, "Must write a few words to tell you I am leaving California soon. I'm on a draft supposed to leave Sunday the 26th. What information I can find, we're headed for New Caledonia, way down near Australia. It's supposed to be 6,500 miles from San Francisco. The base we're supposed to go to is where ships come in for repairs and replacements in their crews. I've been in San Francisco twice on 24-hour liberties. Sure done the town, seen the famous Golden Gate Bridge, Alcatraz, Treasure Island, and many other places of interest." He continues, "I'll see the Golden Gate Bridge from underneath in a few days. Even got a tattoo on my right arm between the wrist and the elbow. Well, my mother said you, Grandma, had fun in Iowa Falls a while. I wish I could be there and see the twins myself. But I guess I've got to see part of the world first. Haven't got too much to write, so don't worry, and I'll send you my address as soon as possible. I still don't know where Lyle is. The last I heard from him was a letter he sent to the folks when he was home on leave. Dwayne." And in this case, Lyle is his brother. So, what I like to talk to students about with this is that you aren't necessarily immediately deployed. Right? He was trained, he was in San Francisco, and you want to keep morale up. So, as you mentioned, 24-hour liberties, right? And so they were able to go into town. And if he had not been enlisted in the war, he probably would not have left the state of Iowa during this period of time. All right, next letter. Sunday afternoon, June 23rd, 1944. I must answer a letter that came yesterday. We just got into port after being out to sea for censored. I haven't been on land now, 7 censored. I didn't have any from Lyle this time, but folks sent me his new stateside address, so I've written him today. Bet he is glad to be back and up and around, even if he's in a wheelchair. We are in a good place now that the mail service will be much faster too. So if you look at this actual letter, none of this mail is secret. Right? It is all being gone through before it makes it to its destination. And so the areas that are censored, they literally cut out, like with scissors, sections of the letter. So in this case, they're talking about how long he'd been out to sea and he hadn't seen land for 7 blank. Given the context of when the last letter was written in March and this being in June, okay, he probably meant 7 weeks. I can't tell you where I'm at, but I might be able to send you some picture postcards. If I could write about all the things I see, this letter would be the size of a small book. I have a new job now since the 1st of July. I'm the CPO's, Chief Petty Officer's, mess cook and compartment cleaner. The food is cooked in the galley, and I bring it over to the chief's quarters for the 6 chiefs we have on board. There is an ice box, a coffee maker, hot plate doilies in the mess compartment that I take care of. The Navy pays $5 a month extra to the mess cooks, and the chief tips me $2 every payday. It is a good deal. It will only last until October 1st, as this is my quarterly assignment. Had a letter from my buddy who is in New Mexico. They love to sleep in hammocks, and every morning they hook them up. The big cruiser, they carry more than necessary, I guess. They have to stand lots of watches too. I don't have to stand any watches anymore now that I'm in mess cooking, but I was a lookout until July 1st. Well, I'll close for now. Everything is okay. Loved, Wayne. And usually the reason I show that letter is specifically because it's one of them that was censored. And then the last two letters that I show, one is immediately after the victory in Europe, and one is immediately after the victory in Japan. So how did a typical American sailor respond to those events? So, letter to grandparents, Sunday afternoon, May 13th, 1945. Today has been busy out here, even though it's Sunday and Mother's Day too. Everything will go at even faster speed now that we only have one enemy to beat. Everyone was naturally very glad to hear that Germany had surrendered, but it will not affect us here in the Pacific like the ones in Europe will be. Some will get furloughs and some will stay, and others will have a long trip to come out here and give us a hand. Japan will really start suffering soon. We had another recreation party last week. Most everyone had some fun. It's really nice to go swimming in the ocean, but you have to watch out for sharp coral rocks. It's easy to swallow some salt water when the wave hits you, and it is hard to take. Being so much easier to swim makes up for everything, I guess. When a person spends so little time in the air, so much time in the air and sunshine, it's hard to imagine life indoors. Remembering the hard work and little money of farm life, I can't seem to see it for the future. But it does give you a chance to be somewhat of your own boss in addition to being an outdoor one. If it were only a little easier to get started on a farm in Iowa, I'm afraid those loans for surviving men are only going to be few and with 4% interest allowed. How many banks or individuals will lend money at that rate? Too few, I'm afraid. If they are going to try and do something to give the fellows to start out, right cash would seem to be the best. So what I always love about this part in mentioning class is that these are extensions of New Deal programs and the idea of the GI Bill is going to come into effect. Ways that he's going to manage to get for being a veteran. But he does end up spending his entire life as a farmer in Iowa. It's been a week or more since a letter came from home, but the May issue of the Des Moines Register and Tribune came. My mother has sent me every month since been out here. 2 other Iowa boys get it too. The popcorn from Ruby and Dale came, and I ate it all in one night. It really tastes good in spite of the long trip. It's much better than candy. We get all the best brands of gum now. Juicy Fruit, Double Mint, etc. I chew a package a day and buy a carton at a time. Glad to hear Grandpa is getting along well with his job. All love to Wayne. And then, as I mentioned, the final letter is right after the surrender of Japan. And so he had been on a carpenter ship in the Pacific, going around and fixing other ships. And now the war in the Pacific is over. In different reality, he may have been needed for the actual invasion of Japan. But Sunday afternoon, letter to the grandparents, August 19, 1945. Well, now that things are getting back to normal after the war ends, I'll answer your letter. The good news sure came sooner than I expected. Everyone, including myself, was on edge for days, awaiting the official yes or no. Already, we have 8 men eligible for discharge under the Navy's point system. It's not a very fair system, but will do to get things started. Under the present setup, I would need 3.5 years to earn enough points. You see, I'm such a tender age and have no dependents. but the total score needed for discharge will be lower in time, and maybe overseas service will count for more, and I have a chance to. In the meantime, a leave would sure help matters a lot. So I'm not specifically very familiar about the World War II era point system for the Navy, but I also use an example for the kids comparing with censorship, is that they're censoring things that might help the enemy if the letter came into their hands, okay, with location. But he has criticized the Navy's system, and this has been untouched because they're not trying to close like dissent in the ranks or something like that. Lyle wrote a few lines but didn't say anything about a new job. He should go to school. He's not too old for that, but I suppose I'll be the same way when I get out. At the present, school seems like the best thing for a young person, but the urge to make a little money is often too strong, and school seems like a waste of time, as ever, Dwayne. All right, so I just thought that I would share these as a primary source record. I mean, I do this in my classes, but primary source record for an actual Navy man during the war, and some of his perspectives about what was going on. So I hope that you like this, and I hope you guys have a good day.